Imagine walking into your boss's office after closing the biggest deal of your life. A deal that saved the company and earned you a contractually guaranteed $45,000 bonus. Now imagine that boss looking you dead in the eye, laughing and saying, "There is no money. And if you open your mouth, I will make sure you never work in this industry again." Most people would feel broken. They would walk away, cry, or spend thousands on lawyers who would tell them they stand no chance against a multimillionaire. But I didn't cry. I didn't sue. Instead, I spent the next 48 hours quietly setting up a trap that wouldn't just give me my money. It would take his Porsche, his multi-million-dollar mansion, his company, his marriage, and ultimately his freedom. This is the story of how a greedy CEO tried to steal $45,000 from me, and how the US government ended up paying me $360,000 to watch him go to federal prison. To understand how this nightmare started, we have to look at the company. I worked as a senior technical consultant at a mid-sized IT firm in Chicago. On paper, we were booming, but behind closed doors, it was a toxic sweatshop. Enter the CEO, Richard. Richard was a textbook narcissist. He was the kind of guy who would arrive at 11 a.m. driving a brand new Porsche, wearing a $3,000 custom suit, bragging about his weekend golfing trips to Aspen, while his employees were burnt out, working 60 to 70 hours a week with zero overtime pay. He used to say, "You guys should be grateful you're learning from me. Experience is worth more than money." I tolerated Richard because I was good at my job. For 3 years, I built the infrastructure of that company. I knew every client, every server, and every flaw in our system. I stayed because my base salary covered my bills, and my contract had a massive incentive, a 5% commission on any major enterprise account I brought in. I was chasing the American dream, not knowing I was working for a corporate predator. In late 2024, a massive opportunity came up. A giant regional healthcare provider, Vanguard Health, was looking to overhaul their entire digital infrastructure. It was a multi-million-dollar contract. Every major tech firm in the city was bidding for it. Richard called me into his office. He poured himself a glass of expensive scotch, didn't offer me any, and said, "If we don't get this contract, we might have to downsize. I need you to lead this pitch. Do whatever it takes. Win this, and you're set for life." For 3 straight months, I destroyed my mental and physical health. I was sleeping 3 hours a night on the office couch. I missed my family dinners, my friends' birthdays, everything. I lived on cold coffee and adrenaline. I personally designed a customized cloud migration blueprint that blew Vanguard's executives away. On a Tuesday afternoon, the email arrived. We won. Vanguard Health signed a 5-year, $1.2 million contract with us. The office erupted in cheers. Richard threw a massive party, popped expensive champagne, and took all the credit in front of me. According to my signed employment contract, a done deal of this scale meant a flat $45,000 cash bonus payable on the next 2 paycheck cycles. I was ecstatic. I planned to use that money to finally pay off my student loans and put a down payment on a modest apartment. I thought my hard work had finally paid off. I had no idea Richard had already decided that my bonus was going to fund his next luxury toy. Payday came. I opened my bank app. My regular salary was there, but the $45,000 was missing. I thought it was a payroll glitch. I walked over to HR, and the HR manager looked terrified. She whispered, "You need to talk to Richard directly about any special bonuses." I knocked on Richard's door. He was smiling, looking at luxury real estate on his monitor. When I asked about the commission, his smile didn't fade. He said, "Ah, yes, the Vanguard deal. Look, the client has a 60-day payout clause. The company hasn't actually received the cash flow yet. Be patient. Next month, for sure." I believed him. But next month, the exact same thing happened. More excuses. Administrative delays, overhead adjustments. Then, on a Friday morning, Richard pulled into the executive parking spot, not in his Porsche, but in a brand new, fully loaded Audi SUV. It was a gift for his wife, paid in full. Blood rushing to my ears, I walked straight into his office without him. I closed the door behind me and said, "Richard, we need to settle the Vanguard bonus today." His demeanor changed instantly. The fake, charming CEO persona vanished, replaced by cold, corporate malice. He leaned back, across his arms and said, "Listen closely because I'm only going to say this once." The company took heavy losses on marketing and legal overhead to secure Vanguard. There is no money left for your bonus. The deal is closed. Your reward is that you still have a desk here. I was stunned. I told him, "It's in my contract, Richard. It's legally mine." Richard laughed out loud. "Go ahead, swim it. You think you can afford a corporate lawyer to fight my legal team for the next 3 years? By the time you get a court date, you'll be broke. And let's not forget, if you leave or make a scene, I will personally blackball you. One phone call from me, and no tech firm in this state will ever look at your resume. Sit back down at your desk and get to work." He thought he had completely trapped me. He thought his wealth gave him total immunity. I looked at him, forced a calm nod, and said, "I understand." I resigned the very next morning via email. Richard texted me a single laughing emoji. He thought he won. What Richard forgot in his arrogance was a fundamental rule of the digital age. Never piss off the guy who builds your servers. Because I was the lead technical architect, I had root administrator access to the company's entire network. Richard had revoked my email access the minute I resigned, but he was so tech illiterate that he didn't realize my administrative tokens on the backup servers were active until the end of the week. The night after I resigned, I sat in my dark living room with a cup of black coffee and logged into the network. I wasn't looking to steal client data or delete files. That would be a federal crime. I wasn't going to jail. I was looking for leverage. I went straight into the hidden financial archives, folders meant only for Richard and his CFO. What I found inside those folders made my jaw drop. Richard wasn't just a greedy boss. He was a massive criminal. I found 2 sets of accounting spreadsheets. One was labeled Internal Real, the other was labeled IRS Submission. For over 5 years, Richard had been running a massive, multi-million-dollar tax emergency. He was writing off his Porsche, his wife's Audi, his family's luxury vacations to Europe, and even his multi-million-dollar mansion's pool renovation as business consulting expenses. But that wasn't all. He was hiding millions of dollars in payments from international clients by routing them through an offshore shell company in the Cayman Islands to avoid corporate income tax. I spent 48 hours straight downloading every invoice, every bank routing number, every email where Richard explicitly told the accountant to fudge the numbers. I organized everything into a neat, encrypted zip file. I knew a standard wage theft lawsuit with the labor board would take months and only get me my $45,000 back, while Richard would get away with a slap on the wrist. I wanted total destruction. So I bypassed the local police, bypassed the lawyers, and went straight to the most feared agency in the United States, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service. Most people don't know this, but the IRS has an incredibly powerful weapon called the IRS Whistleblower Informant Program, Form 211. If you provide them with concrete, undeniable proof of corporate tax fraud exceeding $2 million, they don't just investigate. If they recover the stolen taxes, the whistleblower gets between 15% to 30% of the total amount collected. I filled out Form 211, attached the meticulously organized spreadsheets and emails, and pressed send. Then, I accepted a job at a direct competitor firm, who laughed at Richard's threats and hired me instantly based on my skills. And then, I waited. 1 month passed. 3 months. 6 months. A whole year went by. I heard absolutely nothing from the IRS. I started to lose hope, thinking my report had been buried under government paperwork. I almost forgot about Richard. But federal tax investigations are like glaciers. They move slowly, but they crush everything in their path. The IRS wasn't ignoring me. They were quietly cross-checking my data, securing federal warrants, and building an airtight criminal case. On a random Tuesday morning, exactly 14 months after I resigned, my phone blew up. It was a text from a former co-worker who was still at Richard's firm. The text read, "You won't believe what's happening right now. The feds are here." 3 black SUVs and a van from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division had pulled up to the office building. Armed federal agents walked in with search warrants, locked down the doors, and ordered everyone away from their computers. They seized every hard drive, every server backup, and boxes of paper files from Richard's office. Richard was reportedly led out of the building in handcuffs in front of his entire staff and neighboring businesses. His empire was crumbling in broad daylight. Because the digital evidence I provided was so definitive, Richard's defense team had nothing to fight with. The full audit revealed that Richard had defrauded the U.S. government out of $2.4 million in taxes, interest, and fraud penalties. The consequences were absolute annihilation. The IRS placed massive liens on his assets. The Porsche, the Audi, and his suburban mansion were seized and auctioned off by the government. The company was hit with such heavy penalties that it filed for Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy and shut down permanently. His wife filed for divorce during the criminal trial, taking whatever assets were left of his life. Richard was convicted of felony tax evasion and sentenced to 36 months in federal prison. But the story doesn't end there. A few months ago, an official certified letter arrived at my new apartment from the Department of the Treasury. Inside was an official breakdown of the recovered assets and a check made out to me for exactly $360,000, my whistleblower bond. Richard tried to ruin my life to save himself $45,000. In doing so, he lost his wealth, his family, his company, and his freedom. And the government paid me 8 times my original bonus just to sit back and watch him burn. Let this be a lesson to every greedy boss out there. Be careful who you exploit. The quietest employee in the room might just be the one who holds the keys to your prison cell. If you found this story satisfying, hit that like button, subscribe to Unsolved America, Revenge Stories, and drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? See you in the next case.